All right. Hello, everybody. Tyler James here, and we've got another great live broadcast for you. In a second, I'm going to bring on my pal Travis Gibb, and we're going to talk all things Indietober. But before I do that, I did have a couple things I wanted to plug and share with you all. This is a launch month for myself and the Comics Tribe crew. We've got a Kickstarter running right now for it's sort of a return to the early days of Kickstarter. The very first launch I ever did was for a book called Oxymoron Volume 1. It was an anthology project, and at the end of that project, we greenlit a second volume, and lo and behold, these 12 years later, we are back on Kickstarter at last with Oxymoron Killing Time. The project has been doing awesome. We are the next stretch goal is actually just closing in on it, and the next stretch goal is a 26K. Technically, $26,001 is what I see as the next stretch goal, because that would mean the Volume 2 would surpass what Volume 1 did on Kickstarter. Over 40 creators involved. We might get up to 50 because the next stretch goal involves expanding the page count. We may be expanding the creators that are involved. We're getting more pinups in, and a lot of that actually, some of those extra pinups are thanks to an event that Travis put together. So it's a nice segue right there. So anyway, if you are interested in supporting the project, you can just go over to comicstribe.com/killing time. Check out Oxymoron Killing Time. There's a story that's drawn by me. There's two stories that are written by me, as well as a host of other awesome creators. Many of the creators that are on here, both writers and artists. Hey, they've been on the ComixLaunch podcast in the past, and we love supporting their work and sharing the cool stuff that they're up to as well. And so I'm just excited for this book to finally get out there into the world, to add another great hardcover to the Comics Tribe library. And we hope y'all are excited about that too. All right. I did, while I am here, though, before we bring Travis on, is I did want to give some additional ComixLaunch Pro campaign shout outs, just some projects from creators that are inside the ComixLaunch Pro community that are live on Kickstarter and trying to raise that funding to get their stuff up and running. One such project is by Scott Harris King. It's called Quest numbers 1 through 4. It's an epic fantasy adventure in a magical realm. Cool looking project. It's great covers for your fantasy fans. I know the Lord of the Rings show is back, and this definitely hits on a lot of the vibes that fans of epic fantasy would be into. So want to shout out Scott. Scott is also participating in the Indietober event that Travis is running that we'll be talking about, and he just sent over an awesome Oxymoron pick for that. So I wanted to make sure to get a shout out to Scott. Also live and running with just 37 hours to go is a cool project from Jono Dwaran, and this one's called Roland T. Roach. It's a live action film in a comic. Let's watch just a second or a couple seconds of the video, see what it's all about.
In a world where you know what? Let's just start over. Hey folks, narrative cartoon painter John O'Dwyer here. For the past 15 years, I've been making detailed paintings of cartoons. Now it's time to combine my painting skills with the medium of comics for a painted cartoon comic book. What would the world be like if cartoons actually existed? Roland T. Roach, Strife and Death, tells the story of a cartoon cockroach who lives in the human world. He's trying to make peace with his past.
So cool stuff from Jono, and I'm excited. If you want to check it out, it's Roland T. Roach over on Kickstarter. It's just got a little bit of time left, already funded into that stretch goal territory. But it's a cool process that he is going to. And I've been reading Cat Kid Comic Club, which was a recommendation from James Ferguson with my boy. And it just one of the things that series really points out is that like there's no one way to make a comic, and there's in fact a lot of like clever, cool ways to make comics with different styles, different approaches, and this is another example of one. All right, and then the last Comics Launch Pro shout out I want to give is to Amelie Hutt, Axel Hutt, and Angel's Power Volume 2, and this is the just another epic fantasy, beautiful painted art, super talented, like the amount of detail, the amount of just illustrious illustrations that go into this, pretty impressive. Let's just watch a second or two here.
Hi, it's Axel. I'm the writer and artist behind Angel's Power, Reigning Death, which is the second volume in my graphic novel series. Angel's Power follows the story of Evadrion, an angel with a rebellious past. Her world is a minefield of cunning dragonets plotting her demise, mysterious and ever-marching diabolic armies, and the threat of her treacherous angel compatriots who aren't keen on her questioning anything. This book is a continuation to Angel's Power, Authorities That Be, and is written as a trilogy. Now Volume 2 is completely done and ready to go to print. With your participation here on Kickstarter, we can turn this into a very sexy paper break. This campaign features the second complete volume of Angel's Power with about 320 plus pages in full color.
So clearly a massive amount of work, highly detailed art, Axel's tremendous talent. And so we want to point that out. 14 days to go, still some work to do, but closing in on that 50% mark. Yeah, this is going to be a great volume to get on the shelf. So wanted to shout out some of the members of the Comics Launch Pro community. Again, if you're interested in the Comics Launch Pro program, or if you're a creator that is interested in learning more about comics, Kickstarter, etc., best thing to do is go over to comicslaunch.com/class, take our free masterclass, and afterwards we'll tell you a thing or two about the Comics Launch Pro program and community. But now I'm ready to get into the topic of the day with my guest. My guest is Travis Gibb. Travis is a writer. He's runs Orange Cone Productions. He has a tremendous amount of experience running anthology projects, writing his own creator-owned stuff. He's been doing some work for hire. Like, he is one of the busiest men in indie comics. Welcome back to Comics Launch, Travis. How you doing, man?
Dude, it's good. It's good to be here. Excited. It's so crazy. As you know, I'm part of Comics Launch Pro, and two of those campaigns I didn't even see. We have so many people launching in that community. It's amazing to see. I'm gonna have to check them out after the program.
Yeah, and just for anybody, I've been hearing just a lot of buzz, like in our community and in Kickstarter in general. Like people are like, "Oh, is Kickstarter? Is it harder right now? Are things tougher right now?" One thing that is absolutely statistically absolutely true is that right now on Kickstarter is the busiest time of the year in terms of total number of comic projects launched. Last year, I can't say this with 100% accuracy, but the highest number of projects that I saw concurrently live, or at least comic projects concurrently live, was last year. Near the end of October, when there was about 348 live comic book projects. Right now there's 329 live projects, which is the most that have been on the platform, I believe, this year. And so by the end of the month or by mid-month, we could be at that like max capacity for what it holds. And I know that does mean that there's more competition, and it might be harder to get things like the Project We Love tag. Like, I went through a stretch where like I probably had 4 or 5 projects in a row that all got that tag. The last two projects that I did, they haven't gotten the Project We Love tag, and I think that's probably just a means of just there's a volume and there's only so much that they've done. Thankfully, it doesn't really make that much of a difference to your campaign, but for creators that are relying on that sort of thing, it can definitely definitely may be an issue.
I hear that a lot, that it's really hard right now and stuff, and it is, but I feel like it's back to where it started, a few years ago. It kind of leveled itself out. COVID, we had a lot of people come over, and not just like with money because they had extra money and they were at home, but also people came over creative. Like they were like, hey, I'm home more. Like I want to create, I want to bring something. So a lot more people came to the platform, found success in doing stuff. And I think now it's kind of leveling out. I also think comics as a whole, and this is really hard for someone who loves comics. Like if you go to the comic stores, it's not as exciting right now. We got Absolute Batman. We got some things that are making it really exciting, but in the indie market, it's really like bare bones. There's not a lot of indie books that people are like, oh, you need this indie book. So they're talking about Absolute Batman. We're talking about Transformers. We're talking about a lot of things that aren't indie projects. We're talking look at the top 20 books. There's no Saga's not even there anymore. Like the indie is just kind of in the background right now, and I think that's partly to do with Distillery and what is that other one, Ghost Machine. All these different sub little companies are starting and doing their little thing. Mad Cave is really killing it, doing these things. So it's kind of just splitting that market so you don't see it. And we're waiting for that one in that group that's you must have, like the next Saga, the next Walking Dead.
Yeah. And I mean, I know the direct market now, it's more fragmented. Retailers have to order from like multiple catalogs every month now because it's not that Diamond isn't the one distributor that's ruling them all. And so, I think it's just, it is a different just time, especially for indie comics. And I do think, whereas it might not have been the case 5-10 years ago, now indie comics, I feel like, is kind of almost synonymous with Kickstarter comics.
Right. I agree. I look at, some of my favorite books that are up and coming of people who I want to discover are on Kickstarter. Sync, I'm a huge fan of Sync. Like you like would put it on par with any other book I'm reading. I think that same thing about Destiny New York. There's a lot of these books that are kind of exclusive on Kickstarter. It is a publisher, regardless of what we pretend it's not. It is its own little publisher. It has its own little cool kids and good books and like must-haves.
Yeah, and with Sync in particular, the direct market was the primary focus. We sort of, our original strategy was, hey, we're going to launch the first issue on Kickstarter to help, drive sales and awareness and build assets and funding so that we can release the rest of the series in the direct market. And it did. And the direct market release went much better than expected with that series. But over the years, in the direct market, unlike Kickstarter, like, sales tend to drop off pretty significantly as you go. Also, like going away and taking big breaks between chapters that can affect it. So with volume 3, we really made the decision. All right, we're going to do Kickstarter. We're going to Kickstarter first, Kickstarter and focus for the Kickstarter market, higher end premium stuff, and then we'll come around and release the direct market versions after the fact. And so now that we're at that, it's almost like the direct market versions are there as marketing and relevancy to help keep the Kickstarter stuff going. Yeah. It's kind of flipped on its head, where in the past it was like, all right, Kickstarter first, then direct market's the real launch. And I don't even think that's the case anymore.
Well, I think I want to encourage your listeners and stuff. I always spend that extra $5 to get a Kickstarter book, the second release at the store, even if I have it. And the reason why to do that is it's so important to show the validity of Kickstarter. So if it's selling well at stores, I think the next hurdle that Kickstarter needs to do is we need a category at the Eisners and we need a category at the Ringos. Like Kickstarter books itself needs its own category, and I think that's going to add that validity that Kickstarter needs to be like it is it is important to the industry.
Yeah.
I know that we have our books in those mixes, but I think like having its own category, I think is the next step.
Yeah,
and I think by buying that at the direct market to show the direct market, like, hey, we're going to still support it in both places. It's important.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, like, although best crowdfunded book, I almost wonder, like 3 or 4 years from now, like
Transformers.
what books won't be crowdfunded, and
Right.
especially as these models are such that, like, I mean, in a world where Kickstarter exists, even for creators looking for that lucrative Image Comics deal, right? Like, the ability to go and you know, to release like a monthly Image comic, you're talking about probably investing, you know, $10,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 of like art and team and other stuff up front.
Right.
And in a world where Kickstarter exists, where you can go smaller, incremental, like, I don't know, it's just harder to make that calculation work unless you're already a creator with, you know, a backlist that is, you know, funding you, and or you're working with other publishers that are, you know, the rare publishers that are paying page rates and things like that. Yeah. So for indie work, but hey, we're kind of burying the lead here of the topic here, but this is what happens when we get a couple indie comic creators together, just talking shop. But you've got a celebration of indie comics going right now for the month of October. What is Indietober, man? Tell us, explain to the world what's going on.
So it's creators. A 31-day drawing challenge. So I think it was about 20 years ago. I don't remember who created it. I used to know, but Inktober is a thing, you know, and people will draw from a list. That list was posted, and everyone would draw from that list. Over the years, that list have been more complicated, and people haven't really done that as much. So about 5 years ago, I decided to create Indietober, and it was just for indie books. So we have a list of 31 creators, comic books that we do every day. We'll post about it, and we'll talk about all the creative, cool things that are mostly in crowdfunding. I don't exclusively do crowdfunding, but I do mostly. But I keep out like Spawn and like Savage Dragon and all the cool other indie ones that we have, and focus mostly on crowdfunding books, mostly Kickstarter books. And I try to have it in different genres and different levels of creativity, from someone who has, you know, 500 backers every time they do a Kickstarter, someone who has less than 100, trying to find that balance and trying to get some awareness for some of these really cool characters and really cool characters design we have in the indie market.
Yeah, it's the breadth of characters that are out there, and worlds that have been built, and, you know, we're talking 300 projects live on Kickstarter right now. Like, multiply that times 12, multiply that times the last decade. Like, there's a lot of great characters and visuals out there in the world of indie comics, and so this is just such a fun way to get, you know, awareness for those characters and those creators, and then also get aspiring artists, or in some cases just fans, pulling out their pen and pad of paper and pencil and drawing. So I love that this has been something that you've been able to do. Is this the 5th year now?
Yeah, this is the 5th year. You know, we started out, it was far more complicated. We had 2 characters per day and all sorts of stuff. I had a committee of people who chose. Eventually, I was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick it. Because there's a lot of, unfortunately, you can't, it's only 31 people. There's only 31 campaigns. So we have a couple of small rules for it. So one, if you're on it this year, you're not going to be on it next year. So Oxymoron was on it this year. Oxymoron won't be on it next year. That doesn't mean Sync won't be on it. Doesn't mean a Comics Tribe book won't be on it, but that character won't be on it. Two, if you're a part of it, I want to see you participating. So if I don't see you participating, I'm not going to bring you back next year. It's pretty simple of that. 3, your book has to come out. This is not for your new indie dream that you're launching in October or launching in November that's never happened. It's better if this has a fan base that comes along with it that helps draw it. And those are the rules. And it's worked out really well. I know every year people have been hired to do pinups or covers. Like we've got people work. Last year we gave a $50 gift card. We're probably going to do something like this. This year, 7 Years in Darkness, the best cover, the best image that's given is going to be a cover for that upcoming issue. In Diamond. So we have a lot of really good incentive and a really good community that kind of builds us up. And even though it's small, we only have, I think it's like 371 members in the group. We get about 10% of people drawing these characters.
Yeah. I mean, I was first, it was awesome to have Oxymoron kick off the event. Timing could not have been better. So super appreciative of that. Helped to get off to a strong start. I think it's also a good character because I think he's fairly easy to draw.
Yeah.
and so it was cool to see even like the non-professional artists out there taking their crack at the character and having fun with it. But yeah, just, I mean, the timing couldn't have been better with having a Kickstarter going. And like you said, you know, I've already reached out to a few of the artists who've drawn them saying, hey, you know, looks like we're going to have, as we hit stretch goals and things,
Sure.
we're going to be expanding the page count for the hardcover a little bit. And here's some ready-made content that, you know, artists are cool enough to, you know, want to include in the book. So yeah, it seems like a win-win for everybody paying attention, a win-win for indie comics, etc.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, right? The goal is to celebrate indie comics, to get because some people never get fan art, and it's not because people don't like to do fan art, just they're busy, right? They're busy doing this or that. This gives a time to do fan art, to commit to fan art, and be part of a bigger community and see it. And I really pride myself on picking, you know, great people and people who could do it. Like I intentionally chose Oxymoron because I knew it was live. I try to pick characters that are live, that can help do stuff, and I try to help build what's coming. So a lot of these characters, even if they're not live now, I know that next month they have a campaign or whatever the case would be. It's trying to build that and trying to have people. I try to have people who I know, and then there's a lot of people who aren't even in my circle. I don't know who they are. I just messaged them and said, hey, I've seen your campaign. I've never backed it. I've never stuff, but I think it's a really good campaign. You have a fan base. Can I bring you over to Indietober? Try it out. To try to, you know, mix fan bases and mix communities, because I think that's what's important.
Yeah. So I'm curious because, you know, I'm someone who, you know, well over about, I think it was probably about, got to be more than, oh my goodness. I don't even want to say how long ago it was, but I was at the time teaching a little after school program around making comics to middle school kids, while I was also like slugging through a series that I had been working on and just spending a lot of time doing that, and was kind of jealous of the students that I was teaching's just ability to like, hey, today I'm going to make some new characters. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like, and just jump in and create. And I felt like I was like in the slog of executing on and fulfilling the promises of like a book that I had been working on for several years. And so I was like jealous of like just the ability that kids could often have is just like pulling out that blank sheet of paper and just drawing and coming up with something new. And so that sort of like spawned the idea to do a challenge. It was called the 30 Characters Challenge. It was 30 characters in 30 days for every day of the month of November. And the first year I did it, I think I just did it on a small blogspot blog that I had. But what surprised me is as I was sharing it, you know, a few other people were like, hey, this is a good idea. And they jumped in and they started doing it. And then the following year, I'm like, all right, let me make this like an organized event and I will set up a little website for it. And, you know, that year, and I promoted it a little bit. And that year got like 100 people to participate. And then the third year, it like blew up, got covered on like all the major news sites. Over 1,000 people participated. It was kind of like, and it was one of those things where it really was something that helped me stand out as a creator, not just from the stuff that I was creating there, but just networking with, and I discovered talent that I'm still working with today. And it did a lot for me of organizing this, organizing the event. And so much so that, like, as one of the advanced strategies that I teach in the ComixLaunch Pro program is, organizing some sort of online events can actually be a great way to improve and advance your own career. I'm curious, like, what have you gotten personally from organizing this online challenge? Like, whether it's networking, whether it's just, credentials, whether it's practice at one thing or another. Like, have you seen this? What are some of the positive benefits from doing this?
Yeah, as you know, I do a lot of community-based stuff, from the Indie Creator Hangouts where I do the live shows to the Discord. I have a Discord of over 500 people who talk every day about various comic stuff, to the anthology work, and this being part of it. I was part of those challenges, if you don't remember. So I clearly didn't get scouted, so that's something we'll have to address off air. But what I've gotten out of it is just people just really appreciating being seen. I've obviously got covers from people. I've got people work, and the thank you. But I think that this stuff like this helps me when I ask someone to do an anthology and I'm paying them in the back end. Like, they trust that I have their best interests in heart because I did something like this. Like that's probably the key, is the goodwill of doing those things. So I can get better, stronger talent who will get paid the smaller page rate, because anybody who does anthologies, this may shock you guys, but anthologies are very small pay rate. It's not a big money. It's more kind of doing it for the love of whatever the anthology is. So it allows me to help gain trust with those creators to do that. And again, it helps me, I love indie comics. I've backed over 1,000 of them. I'm very active on the Kickstarter. It allows me to show some of these books that I love that don't get that exposure that they need. And I really love that ability to do so. We keep talking about doing isn't that great? It's so good.
Yeah.
We keep talking about doing a Kickstarter connected with this, of maybe, art book, over of the best of the last couple of years. We haven't done something like that, but yeah, that's kind of what I gain, is just the goodwill of the community. And again, I can scout art just like, you did in your stuff, scouting people who I think could be good fits for covers and good fits for any of my anthology works, which I have a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you, for the people that are participating, like, what have, like, there does seem to be like a nice mix. And what have you heard from them? What kind of feedback do you get from them, after the fact, or what do you hear, or do you get suggestions coming in?
Yeah. Every year I get something. I get somebody, this year I got, hey, I was really upset that you didn't invite me last year, so I get some negative stuff. And I always tell them, hey, I'll make sure I get you on next year. This isn't an exclusive club. It's just trying to figure it out and figure out the best mix. Because if you look at the names and all the characters, you'll notice it's girl, it's action, like it's spread out to do some stuff. And then it's horror because it's Halloween, trying to get things that people want to draw. The other thing is that the thank yous of people who got work, that's the biggest thing, of people who got cover work, or people who made this art and someone then paid for it to be involved in something else. They were like, I want that as a cover. Can I pay that for being a cover? And then even people like Smelky. Smelky, I know you had him on your show recently. I know he's an oxymoron, but Smelky's a big deal in the art community. He sells really well. He's got a lot of exclusive cover deals. So being on one of his covers is a big deal. I think that's not that's a really good prize. So if you're an up and coming artist and that's something you're interested in, it's really good. The biggest hurdle that I always have is getting writers to draw. And even if you draw just one or two, I don't expect you to draw a lot, just to show that you want to be part of this community, show that you want to be involved, that you see the value. Because the one thing I hate about any of these things is just people who take, hey, I want my character, but I'm never going to participate, never going to share, I'm never going to thank the artists who do it. Those are the people who I get rid of very quickly on these things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So talk to me a little bit about how you put together this year's punch list. I mean, obviously, oxymoron. You knew the anthology was coming, and you've. I know the Red 10 was a book that, or an indie book that you enjoyed, and as well as just the Comics Drive stuff in the past. So really appreciate you putting us in there. But how did you go about it? I mean, I think there are a lot of creators that are out here and they're so focused on their own work. It might be difficult for them off the top of their head to go through and put together a punch list of 31, iconic, strong visuals, lends themselves to fun for artists, etc. But you seem to have been able to put together a fresh list every single year. But what's your approach? Do you start with a fresh sheet of paper? Have you been putting this together all year round? How do you do it?
Well, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. First, we start with, I only get one a year. So what's mine? So that's the first one, because, I got to get a little selfish. So I get one a year. So I start there. And then I hit the big creators who will bring people that people want to draw. So this is not, it's not like a Pat Chan, a Kevin Joseph, Mary Shelley, Jessica, grab some of these bigger creators that have a platform and bring them over and make sure that they have a character involved and mixed throughout. Because those are the ones that people want to see art of, that people love. They have a fan base that they're going to share it to, that'll bring more people into the community. So I make sure I get like 5 or 6 of them. So that's kind of my thing. Then the next step is Halloween based. I try to find, at least to do 1 or 2 Halloween ones every week of the campaign. So I try to find ones that are scary. So that's why we have the Mary Shelley in there. That's why we have a Mortal Cold. That's why we have the Horse Goes to Hell and the Spill Blood and et cetera, Grave Sitters, all these horror things. So that it is October. It's scary month. You got to make sure you have a very good mix of horror.
Yeah.
The next thing is this is a good chance where, even though it doesn't do great on Kickstarter, superheroes, getting a lot of superheroes over here are good because superheroes are fun to draw. So people love to draw superheroes. So I try to grab 1 or 2 superheroes that I think are doing well in the indie community and kind of put them on. And then I look, probably the 3 months prior, really scouting what's on Kickstarter, who's doing well, whether or not I know them or not, and see if I can get them on and trying to include as many of those characters and people as I can. Playing it out, it's tough because there's so many books that I love, but I have this rule of I'm not going to put them on next year if they were on this year. I try to have a mix of talent of different communities that are doing stuff. So it's trying to find all that balance and giving everyone a fair shot, as well as mixing in good popular characters with more unknown to hopefully get some backers. So the goal, right, is to get some backers for these things. And I know people have used these to go, hey, thank you for drawing my stuff. Let me send you a free digital of my book, and it helps, we get a backer next time.
Yeah, love it. And, it's a smart way to mix things up. Is it too late to participate if we're here on day 3? And this will air on the podcast in a couple of days from now. But is it too late to participate, or can people jump in and start drawing right now?
Yeah, you can jump in at any time. So you can start drawing from 1. No one's going to complain if you start on day 12 and want to do 1 through 12. We'd love it. Like, people love it. It keeps them going and engaging. But if you just want to come in and draw your friend's book, maybe you're the artist of a book. Like last year, we had Connor Hughes do a few because we had White Ash in it, which is great. Connor Hughes is a great stuff. So some people got Connor Hughes art, which would be very expensive because he's kind of doing some cool stuff. So you can come and just do that. Or you could just do a couple of days of characters that you like. There's no limit. However, about on the 15th, it starts to slow down. I'll be honest. Like we get less people drawing just because people lose interest as it goes. That's when we start adding awards. So that'll be like a gift card, but you'll have to do all 30. There'll be some challenges to do that. So, but we don't talk about those early because I just want the natural excitement of it. We're going strong right now. We're getting about 10 drawings per character, which is pretty good. And then even, yesterday, Scott King came up with an oxymoron on basically day 3, today. So people are drawing the old stuff and catching up and doing stuff, but we'll have some sort of challenge and we'll give a gift card away and we'll try. It's all about community building and getting these indie characters out so you see them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, obviously doing this for the love of doing it is a great thing. But like when I saw that from Scott, like one of the things that I know you do and I do often is we shout out other Kickstarter projects that are live during Kickstarter, but we also want to be like at least for me, I like to have a nice smooth segue transition when I go ahead and pitch a book, especially if it's not a 1-for-1 audience match. Right. But when someone like Scott, who has that series Quest up going right now, it's an epic fantasy, pretty far from what my current project, Oxymoron Killing Time, is. It's a little bit harder thing just to pitch to that group. But by him doing an awesome piece featuring Oxymoron in this group, that then has me being like, oh, yeah, well, let me share this in an update with my backers. And then use that as a natural segue to point out to how to get more great work from Scott. And then also at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to plug the Indietober event to, hey, go check out more Oxymoron art. And who knows, you can pitch in there. And then I also think things like, hearing that Joe Schmalke has a cool reward or a bonus, that's awesome. And it may encourage other creators to like, all right, what else can I throw in just to give that extra little impetus to draw this? Because, I mean, some artists, it's clear, like, and I love it too. Like there's somebody participating. I have to pull it back up. He's basically doing all of his in pencil drawings on Post-its, but Peter, Peter, yeah, love it. Why not? At the end of a month, I'll have 31 just cool Post-its on his wall. And on the other hand, other artists are spending time doing like full detailed, full colored, like
cover work
drawings that's like, hey, this is taking them hours and hours, and everything in between. So yeah, I love just that. And this is one of the great things about indie comics is like, there's no one right way to do it. Right.
Yeah, I think we're getting this year's very unique because we've got the Post-it note, and then we've got the guy who's doing just the like price things and making it 1 and 2, like as it's like an issue, the corner thing with the Comic Authority. We're getting all that. We're getting some that are full color. We're getting some that are black and white, and we're getting people throwing down the gauntlet. Last week Gerald threw down some stuff, and Brian Wolf was like, I got to bring up my A game, and he's trying harder on it. And that's what we want to see. We want to see this community, and all it does is benefit. Like you said, you've reached out to some of these people. You want them in your book to do stuff. That's the goal. Now you have a new connection with a publisher that you never had a connection. You may not have known that Comics Tribe exists until this contest. Now you do. Same thing with me. Mike, I'm doing selfishly. I have Coins Judas coming out next year. I'm going to use some of that stuff. Of course I am. Like it's all part of the process. And this is what can help us all grow is involving people who are interested in your characters into the bigger medium of indie comics.
Yeah. And I mean, also, it's cool to see some people that I haven't had the opportunity to interact with before, but they're just like, oh, hey, I did this piece. And the reason I did this piece is referring back to issue number 1 that was published in 2015. That is like, I was like, oh, you read that? Like that, people actually read this stuff, and it made an impact on them. So yeah, it's cool, and it's doing what I think you set out to do, which is like celebrate this awesome world of indie comics.
Yeah.
Riffing on that, as an indie comic expert, I'm wondering if I could get, I'll give you a couple categories and just get some off the dome recommendations of indie books that people might want to check out from a Kickstarter super backer and indie comic aficionado. So, I mean, let's start out. We are in Halloween, so indie horror recommendations. What you got? A couple books you want to shout out?
We've already mentioned Sync, and I'm not saying that just because Tyler is. Tyler knows I'm a huge fan. John Lee's, I think, is
didn't pay him to say it.
Yeah, John Lee's is. It's a shame that he's not writing Ghost Rider, that he's not writing some of these really cool Marvel and DC stuff, because he's got the exact temperament of a superhero book with all the right beats and all the right surprises. He's really good at that. But others in that realm is The Crossing. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's a great book by Erica Jennings. It's about ghosts, but unlike normal ghosts, it's about a ghost. This guy meets this ghost on a train, and he keeps following her around. And you find out there's more ghosts, but ghosts aren't normal in this world, and they're made from this one thing that's happening. And it's a very interesting thing. It's also done. The art is by Alex Cormack, so there is a tie there. But that's one of my favorite horror books. Let's see what else is coming out, or that's going on right now. Let me see what I'm backing in the horror realm. I think you've got Vampires of Mars. I think is really fun. It's basically the premise of this particular book is they need to send people to Mars, and they need to survive without oxygen because they can only get so oxygen stuff. So they send vampires who don't need oxygen to live, and it's pretty funny, but it's also kind of a cool book to kind of back and get into. See, trying to think of all the stuff. Sorry, my phone keeps ringing. We've got Pale of the Path of the Pale Rider, which is like what happens when nobody dies. For some reason, nobody's dying, and it's making some people crazy. It's kind of this weird, like, kind of twist, and it's kind of everything's gone back to the Old West. It's got kind of zombies in it and things like that, which I think is a lot of fun. So those are probably my top. And then obviously we go back to Smauky. I believe he's still live with his trade paperback, right?
7 Years of Darkness is still
7 years of
year
Darkness.
one.
Yeah, 7 Years of Darkness. Not only is it written well, it's kind of like a dark Harry Potter. Basically, there's I don't remember the number. I think it's like 31 students go into this kind of houses, and they learn magic, but by the end only one of them will live, and it'll be like a master sorcerer, and all the sorcerers are really cool, all the imagery is really cool. He uses a low color palette to draw it in a unique way, so that's definitely one. And what's cool about this particular one, I've had it for a long time. This is just kind of a print of trades exclusive for Kickstarter. So this is, again, one of these great things about Kickstarter. I see a lot of creators who, once they make it in the direct market, they don't use Kickstarter as much, but they do it for these special things. And I know this is one of those special things. So it's a special trade paperback just for that. So that's the one that I highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm excited to get the trade because I picked up the first issue from Joe last year at a convention, but I haven't continued the series just because it's been a while since I've been in a comic shop. But yeah, excited to get the collection, and I know that this is the next 7 years of Joe's creative life working on this series. Much like a Harry Potter, each year will each volume will follow a year in the education of these dark wizards, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's connected to his kid. Like, it's his fear of his kid leaving the house. Like he's told me personally, it's about his fear of his kid leaving. Like, it's kind of a countdown to his kid leaving the house. And as someone who's a parent who has a 22-year-old, like, I get that. Like, I get the fears of that, and writing and using those emotions, using real emotions. As anyone who uses real emotion, that real stuff in their writing, you just feel it. You just feel it. Yeah,
and it's the perfect convention book pitch because it it has 3 levels of it. You can do the, it's this meets this, what if what if it was Harry Potter, but all the wizards were dark wizards, or Hogwarts, but for Voldemort.
Right.
So that's one angle, like the high level. Okay, and then like the actual pitch itself about 72 children go to this academy, but only 7 will ever graduate because and they get whittled down. Like that's like a compelling thing. And then if you could also add the personal angle, like you have a knockout home run pitch for convention. So Joe did well with this one. So all right, we got some horror recommendations out of the way. Another common, probably, when most people think of comics, they think of super people in capes and tights punching each other. Marvel and DC tend to have that piece of the market well carved out. But are there any indie superhero books that you could recommend right now?
Yeah, I like Zob the Lightning Wielder. It's XOB. It's Sob is how we pronounce it. I don't know how it translates to that, but that's what it is. Lightning Wielder by Kyron Silver. It's kind of a I'm not sure if it's live right now, but I don't think it's live right now, but it's a really cool like lightning hero, but it's connected to like an Hawaiian like myth of how the gods came from, which is really cool. I like Hut Shot by Michael Watson. In Vigilance, that Hut Shot whole universe is really cool. They've kind of got their own thing. So the new one that they have launching is called 5 Star. So it's a cool little buff superhero, but it's all part of a Hot Shot universe, and there's several characters in that, which is really, really cool. And I'm really proud of that community for sticking around. I really want to put that. So you remember, because you and I are old. Do you remember War of the Independents?
I do, yeah.
When I read that book, one of the things that makes me really, really sad is because every issue is broken down. They've got like the humor characters. They've got like superhero comics. They've got like black superhero comics. They've got like women femme fatales. The black superhero section, I don't recognize any of those. And what breaks my heart about that is that it means so many of these indie creators in the black community left before Kickstarter became such a thing and was able to show the community all these really cool larger than life characters. Where Mike Watson, they've been around for about 10 years now, I think, 5 or 10 years, and they're still going strong, still adding more to that universe. So I really like that because it always breaks my heart when I read that book, because that's a section that I visually notice none of these heroes exist anymore, where all the other ones have some cool stuff. That's a good book if you guys can find it too. War of the Independents, really hard to find, but it's really fun. I like there's a book, superhero book called what is it? What is its full title? Give me a second. Sorry, it put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot. Yeah, that's all right. The great
Luke,
part about these live,
it's brand new. First issue. So you can get it now. It's Caden. It's called Loogie. It's a giant like junkyard like blob of slime on her head, and she's kind of goes through like fun little adventures. This book, Caden has been working on this book nonstop for the last couple of years. And it's really well done. And it actually shows something that you talk a lot about in ComixLaunch, is launching when you are ready, like launching when it's time. This is a first-time creator, never launched before. It's only backed 23 things, but they've been active in the community and showing this character off for years as they built this character from design to concept to everything. And I mean, it's killing it. I think it's at 7K, right?
Yeah.
Over
7K, 188 backers.
That's 188 backers. And this is proof that if you build something and you build a community around it, when you launch, they're ready and excited. Because when we started this, competition is fierce right now. A new creator shouldn't be getting this kind of money, but it's because Caden did the work, interacted with people, asked people the questions, tried to make their book as strong as possible. And we are all excited to support and be part of that book because they were active and built the tools they have. And it doesn't have to be a ComixLaunch community, be any community. Find a community that you want to stick with, that you really want to interact with, so they want to help you succeed to get your launch up. And I'm so proud of that, because you know, and you've seen it over the last couple of years, getting these big first time launches just aren't happening. And I mean, he's going to hit 10K.
Yeah.
With
Love it.
29 days to go. Absolutely going to hit 10K.
Nice. All right, let's talk your bread and butter, where you kind of one of the areas where you got started, crime comics.
Crime comics. That is a little lacking these days in the realm of indie comics. So you've got her. You know, that is out there. You've got got currently we got the Sherlock Holmes and the Phantom Masquerade on, which is kind of crime-ish. So it's that's live right now from Daniel Calvin. Daniel Calvin's a great creator. So if you're kind of looking like crime mystery, you know, using the Phantom of the Opera and using Sherlock Holmes, I think is good.
I saw American Yakuza.
American Yakuza is the next one. Yeah, I was going to mention American Yakuza. It's on issue 3. What's cool about that one is that's like buying a monthly book. It's coming out every 6 weeks on Kickstarter. Wow. So I think it's a 3-week campaign delivering to you, getting the next one. So that's a really cool one about a guy who's an MMA fighter, goes over to overseas, gets into a fight with this guy, and they kind of switch roles. He wants to kind of figure out what it's like to be an American, and he wants to figure out what it is to be a Yakuza boss. So that's a really cool one. Yeah, I think in the crime category, I think that's all we've got that's at least live.
Yeah. And I'll give you one more, just this is kind of a wild card, but guilty pleasures. What would you have in the guilty pleasures catalog?
What is a guilty pleasure?
Well, that's
with Kickstarter being what it is these days. So I don't back a lot of those, my friend.
Yeah, you know, not trying to get in the doghouse, right?
Yeah, I don't back those. I don't even like. I just don't get the appeal to it. Just me. But some of my guilty pleasures of kind of my favorite fun little books is Grandmother Chainsaw, and Horse Goes to Hell. And it's Hocus Hocus. It's kind of this. He has this little universe of like. It's kind of horror, but it's kind of funny. It's more like it's more funny slapstick, like a Rick and Morty, than like a serious book. So those I like. I'm a big fan of White Ash. So White Ash is live. Yeah. That's a guilty pleasure of mine. That has all the right stuff. That has a little bit of the sexy in it, but also has such a great story. I remember I backed that 100%. It's one of those books that I backed because I think you mentioned it in one of your things about packaging, about how to do proper packaging and branding. So it's live right now, and he does the greatest branding of all the stuff. Like it comes in like this beautiful envelope and like with a postcard and like a stamp from the town of White Ash. And then I read it and I was like, oh, Charlie Stickney can write. Oh, yeah. All right. So now I got a really good story. And even though if you've read these stories before, like it's nothing that's like super surprising in it, but it's so well written that you want to see what's going on because you know you're all like in it. If you've ever watched a movie where you're like, seems to be predictable, you know that's going to drop at some point. And because it's so well written that you're going to keep watching it and you're going to figure out where this is. A lot of sci-fis like that where you're like, I kind of know this. It's kind of like Star Wars, or it's kind of like Star Trek or Stargate, and then it flips it on its head and you're like, oh, this is drastically different. And Charlie Stickney can write. We're on volume 8. It does very similar to the sync model, like double issues. You're getting a big content when you get it. So highly recommend. That's my favorite book live right now, I think, besides Oxymoron.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and appreciate just hooking up the listeners with some indie recommendations. We are in a great time for discovering new comics and things like that. But then also the fun thing, you know, I've got some ads running for the new Oxymoron thing, and you know, the responses of people that respond to ads, it runs the gamut between like, this looks like a rip off of this and this and this. It's like, on the one hand, and then other people are like, hey, this looks really cool. So glad to discover it. And you get everything in between. But you also realize that, like, you know, in the indie world, most of the civilized world still hasn't had the opportunity yet to come across these and experience and enjoy these characters. So anything that can be done, events like Indietober, new Kickstarter launches, running ads, just cross promotions to potentially get those new fans eyeballs on stuff is worth doing. So,
well, and especially if
for it,
you
man.
love, you know, you're luckily one of the benefits of like creators like you and I, we have this vast catalog. So if you like Oxymoron, like if you really, that new person who comes on and likes it,
Yeah.
they can buy this, and then they're going to be able to read the Red 10 for the first time. They're going to be able to read, you know, the Loneliest Nightmare, right? Is it the
Loveliest Nightmare? Yeah.
Loveliest Nightmare. And then the first thing, they've got so much in this universe that they get to explore, which I think is really cool. And it's like going to the comic store, you know, and you find that new book that you like, and you're like, oh, what was before? Oh, this crossed over with this, you know, doing that, you know. I have a character called Kaboom from Extreme Studios that I really like. Not something that's super loved, but I am constantly like, someone was like, hey, did you know that Kaboom was in like 3 issues of Supreme? Cool. So now I'm hunting for these 3 issues of Supreme to kind of check it out, to just add a little bit more love to these characters. And I think it's good when they go away for a while, like an Oxymoron, and come back. In fact, I want to help Oxymoron out. So let's give a Cthulhu trade, digital, and a Holiday Spirits trade if you get the 30.
If we get to if we get to what?
30. I think you'll get to 30.
30? All right.
You don't think we?
No, yeah. I think we'll do it. I've got a few more
tricks.
A few more tricks.
But let's help sweeten that pot. Let's give a Cthulhu trade, whatever one you guys decide. You can have a vote on it, and a Holiday Spirits trade.
All right. We will make it happen. And I will also, you know, announce that now that the book is getting a little bit bigger, Travis is gonna be participating. We're gonna announce a couple additional creators that will be doing that, and you and I have been going back and forth on a end of credits scene to this thing that I think will touch things off really nicely. So,
and it really means the world to me. So for those people who don't know, like Tyler and I have been friends for a long time, but I found him at a con. I can tell the origin story. I found him at a con, Boston Comic Con. I think issue 4 of Red 10 was out, or 3 or 4. And he pitches me that 10, and I'm a cocky young guy, you know. I'm probably 18, 19 when it happened.
Already a jaded comic fan,
right? Already a jaded comic fan, and he's like, "This is going to be a 10-issue series, indie comic." And I remember specifically looking at you and going, "This isn't going to make 10 issues, sir." Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm excited that you believe that. I'm going to buy all of them, but there's no way that an indie book, because statistically it just wasn't happening. People weren't doing that. It wasn't like Kickstarter now. They would come up with 1 or 2 issues, and you all had to fund it out of pocket, and then you had to fund your cons out of pocket. And cons, for the most part, aren't extremely profitable. There's exceptions, of course, but for the most part, they're not very profitable. It's more about networking, paying for itself, networking, and hopefully finding that next gig. So Red 10 has been something I've really loved for a while. The book that it's inspired it, And Then There Were None, was one of my first memories of a book that was assigned to you as from a teacher that I enjoyed. Like, because, you know, you get all those books for years. And in 5th grade, I remember was assigned to it. And I remember I was so pissed because you could get a pizza party if you could guess the killer. And I was like, it's unfair because you could never guess that killer. And someone did guess it. So I believe they read ahead. I can't prove it, but I believe they read ahead. So
I mean, I read it, and then like I reread it before writing the Red 10, and I was like, oh crap, I've read this before. And I can't remember who the killer was. And so it was still a surprise to me. And I'm like, that's a good mystery.
Right. But the character of Oxymoron is a character. It's like getting to write that character even for a little bit is a dream character for me, being able to do it as someone who loves indie comics so much, being able to play in that. And I'm so blessed that so many people trust me. I've got to write Nightwolf for Rob Otari, and I get to write all these books that I love and create. But Oxymoron is one of my first indie loves. So loving that Red 10 and that Red 10 universe, because I had never seen a superhero universe. And reading it today, I just reread it to write this, and just seeing some of the old references and some of the stuff is just funny and brings you back to a different time.
Yeah.
And the way it's presented is not the way you present that story today, just because we have different techniques of the way a story would present, but that is very much of the time how you would present that story.
Yeah. And, when I look at like The Boys and other things like that, I'm like, there was a lot going on in the zeitgeist of like the world of indie comics as, corporate driven and everything that I was touching on that has since kind of been, it's been an area that's been mined pretty deeply over the past decade, which is always, I mean, and this as a creative person, but also someone that pulls stuff from the zeitgeist, like, feeling like, oh, this is just this thing, which came out afterwards, or like you may have even started it before that. It can be, a little frustrating sometimes to hear that, but on the whole, just hearing from fans, seeing that they love it, seeing that they're excited for this character to come back and to see what's next. And also, like, I sort of see like the Oxymoron being a character that can riff in different contexts, like there can be the super dark, serious serial killer crime 7 version of him. And there can also be like the Looney Tunes, like zany version of it, and everything in between, and everything in one anthology project, which I'm hoping people, when they get the whole thing, it was something that I spent a lot of time like trying to let creators kind of do their own thing and go wild, but also within a frame that is going to be a cohesive reading experience and have a little bit of heart and a little bit of surprise and a little bit of whimsy and a nice twist at the end. So I don't know, excited to get it finally out there to the world, and excited to have you a part of it, man.
Yeah, well, there's great, if your first volume has anything to do with it, some of those creators went on to do amazing things. About half of that book are mainstream stuff. You got people doing Thundercats. You've got John Lees who had besides your stuff, the AWA stuff, and you've got Rich Juak who's doing Marvel and DC work. You've got some Paul Alder who was indie darling for about 5 years there.
So many of those people, it's the first, we didn't pay them handsomely, unfortunately, but we paid them. It was the first it was like the first check that they cashed from a publisher in comics. And so that's cool to, was cool to see. We went probably a little insane with like all of the variant hardcovers and everything that, a lot of lessons were learned on that first Kickstarter and the scope and scale of it.
I get confused sometimes when I run across it. I'm like, do I have this? Like, and I was like, oh, it's another variant of the hardcover.
Yeah. There were 10 the main cover, and then 9 more variant hardcovers, including one of the variant hardcovers that I hadn't seen in a while because I think we sold out of it. But it was like one of the hardcovers was a montage collage cover with art from all of the artists involved. Like, I was like, oh man, I had a lot of energy back then.
Paper was cheaper though, so I mean, it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's pre-pandemic pricing. Well, good, man. What's the rest of your year looking like beyond Indietober?
So I'm launching later this month. Hospice. You remember that hospice experiment that we did? Finally going to put that in trade. It's been a year, so we waited a year to make sure everybody could get that, sell them at cons, and do that. So we're going to put out a trade. All 6 of those people are coming back to do a trade. We're going to add some new back content. We're going to have a new story in it, maybe a couple of new comic pages. But we're going to launch that coming up very soon. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to do a kind of a quick personal thing. Just so many of these, as I've been doing this so long, I've been part of a lot of anthologies, and some of the anthologies didn't come out. Some of them had some issues. So I'm gonna launch just a little one shot of about 36 pages of just different anthology pieces that I have together, kind of as for people who don't want to pay the, $30 an anthology book price, so they can get it. And these are all like at least a year old or so. So it's going to be really cool. 2 of them never got released because they took the money and ran, or whatever the case would be, which unfortunately is a reality sometimes. So I've got a couple of those. So it's good to be able to put that out and get those stories out to the wider public.
Well, awesome, man. I'm excited to see what else you got cooking. I want to encourage folks to head over to Indietober. Just plug in Indietober on Facebook. You can find the Facebook group. Check this. You'll be seeing stuff on social media and around the horn. But a lot of great art, a lot of great characters, and a lot of love for indie comics. Travis, thanks for hanging out with me today.
Always a pleasure, good sir.
All right. And everyone else, we can't wait to see what y'all launch next. Take care now.